Welcome back, everyone. Our afternoon begins with a fireside conversation on something powerful, the idea that knowledge, when accessible, becomes transformative. Stories shape understanding, and understanding shapes change. Now we have a dialogue on knowledge as power, democratizing social impact through technology. Let's give a huge round of applause for the moderator, Swati Avasti, the founder, Women in Product India, and the speaker, Smaranita Shetty, CEO and co founder, India Development Review.
So welcome back and welcome to this session. Today's conversation will be all about one crucial question. It's about how do we democratize access to knowledge which is trustful and which accelerates the social impacts sector, specifically in India, and it takes it to the next level where we are able to operate with agility, integrity, and speed. So that is what I will be discussing with Smaranita. A little introduction about myself. My name is Swati Avasti. I'm the founder of Women in Product India, which is a community of product managers, leaders, and founders. My experience has been in product and tech, over a decade of experience in the US, UK, and now India. And I've been enjoying getting to know this sector, how product is evolving in India. Who is the founder and CEO of India Development Review. And they are coming up, they're developing an amazing product, which I am very excited about. I've been talking to her all about, which is called IDR Answers. And let me talk more about IDR. It's the world first AI-powered sector-bounded search and analysis engine designed specifically for social impact. So very close to both of our hearts in the sense it's social impact sector and very tech and product heavy. So Smaranita, welcome to this conversation. I have my first question for you. You've spent nearly a decade building IDR to democratize knowledge. What gaps did you see in this ecosystem that led you to create IDR Answers? And why do you think this is the moment to build it?
Thanks, Swati. I think first I just want to say it's so good to see so many women. I'm so used to being on panels, in conferences where like women are a minority. I studied computer engineering many, many years ago, and then I worked in financial services. So the proportion of men to women in those spaces. So it's really, really heartwarming to see thousands and thousands of young women, come together in community, interact with each other, have a space where they can speak, they can be heard. So it just warms my heart. It's great to be here. But to your question, Swati, I'll talk a little bit about IDR so that you have context on why IDR Answers. IDR is, like she said, India's only media platform that focuses on social impact space. And the reason we set it up was almost 10 years ago is because, I studied engineering, but I was also a journalist many years ago with Economic Times. And all of us, right, the first thing we do in the morning, and maybe not your generation, but probably our generation will open a newspaper. So imagine starting your day, not having, say, the Economic Times, not having Wired, all the publications you'll probably read online. What would your world look like, right? Imagine if you got up and didn't know what was happening in your field, in your space. How would you learn, right? What decisions would you take, right? It's almost impossible. And yet the social impact space, which is it used to be 10 years ago, $35 billion sector, that's how big it is, had no media platform. So how are we learning, right? Invariably, you learn from picking up the phone or talking to people, but it's limited. So which is why IDR was born. And in a sense, it covers everything to do with gender, healthcare, education, jobs, sanitation, LGBTQ, mental health, all of it, right? All the things that matter to a nation. But over time, we realized, we have 3,000 pieces of knowledge and content. It's multimedia. We reach 20 million people a month. We realized, it's very hard to search for information, right? So if you want to know what's happening, tell me how climate is affecting women in northern India. If you search on IDR, you'll get 20 links. None of us are reading those links, right? Now when we search on Google, we're not even reading the links there, right? We're reading that, generative AI thing on top. So we said, if we have to be relevant in today's age, we need to give knowledge out in a form that people are using, right? So everyone's using generative AI to get that first cut of knowledge. So we're saying, how do we make sure that even when you're searching for knowledge in the impact space, you get that. And the second thing we decided to do idea and answers now is you're also seeing with, OpenAI, with ChatGPT, you're seeing a lot of misinformation, right? It's garbage in, garbage out. There's a lot of wrong information on the net, and that, it pulls that together and gives you answers. Which means that you're getting misinformation in the generative AI form. So the only way to counter it is to contain the knowledge source, right? So we use the RAG model, and you're going to see a lot of companies, both in the commercial space, but also in the impact space, try to counter misinformation by creating these siloed RAG models. So we have it for the legal sector, you will have it for finance. There was a panel which was on banking before this. You'll definitely have it for the impact sector, right? So, which is why now, one is, how do you make sure people have access to accurate information? And the second is people don't have time. So you need AI to kind of help you.
That's really wonderful to understand, Smaranita. And that brings me to the next question, which is you talked about misinformation, which amplifies a big deal in terms when it comes to social sector more, right? Versus like if it's information that's not like causing things that are life or death, right? So I would love to understand, what does it take to build ethical sector-specific AI models? You talked about RAG a little bit, but what about these sector-specific AI models that are kind of powering that RAG, that counter misinformation and ensure that accuracy?
Thanks, Swati. I think it's a very important point you've talked about, right? Because today, when all of us hear about conversations of AI, what is the thing you hear, right? You hear speed, you hear scale, you hear efficiency. Let's use AI to make things efficient. Let's use it to make it more effective. Nobody's talking about trust. Nobody's talking about ethics. Nobody's talking about equity, right? And if you don't talk about it, means you're not paying attention to it, right? And what is this rush for scale and speed? And if you don't keep ethics at the center of it, and if you don't keep governance at the center of it, it is going to crumble. I was talking to Divya and Swati earlier, and I was using the example of social media. 15 years ago, when the Facebooks and all of the world, LinkedIn and all of the world came to being, it was like the best thing that happened because it gave us a sense of community. You could talk to people across the world. You could engage with them. You could get access to information that you would otherwise not get in your country and in your city. But look what's happened now, right? Social media is the #1 cause for harm across age groups. And now, even though everyone recognizes it, it's irreversible, right? You can't change it. And if we don't think about trust and equity and ethics, AI is going down that path, right? If we don't build the guardrails today, you can be definitely sure that 10 years down the road, we are going to look back and say, why didn't we think of this? AI is causing more harm. So the things you mentioned, right? How do you think of ethics as you're building out any AI product, whether you're sitting in the commercial world, in a company, in the social impact space, it's a given because you work with vulnerable populations. You're like kind of morally bound to serve them and like do good and do right. So there is a lot of emphasis, but the companies in the corporate world and the business world are also serving customers, are also serving, income segments across the world, and they should be thinking about some of this, which is why I think it falls on individual companies. And again, I think Divya said, Shweta said, we look to the government. We're like, we'll do our thing and let the government will come up with, things to follow. And then we'll complain that, the government is being so, difficult. How do we incorporate ethics in that? And I think that's something all of AI should look at. And it doesn't matter whether you're in the impact space or in the corporate
Definitely, yeah. It is not like an afterthought at this point. It has to come from not just policymakers, as you said, from everyone who's involved in AI, building the next stage of tech. So thank you for sharing that sentiment, Smaranita. My next question to you is that one of the most powerful goals of IDR Answers is expanding into Hindi. And when I say Hindi, it probably talks more about like all of the different languages in India that you are trying to target, but definitely to reach millions currently, which are excluded by language barriers. How can multilingual AI platforms transform access and empower underserved communities through knowledge equity?
No, thanks. So I think one of the things we've always said about the digital thing is while it can bridge, it can also divide. And today, when you see AI, it is English. I mean, it's primarily English, which means there's a certain kind of audience that can access it, right? Like all of us who come for this conference, all of us who are English speaking. What does that mean? It means it gives us an edge over everyone else, right? I mean, we all know, and all of us have heard this, that knowledge is power, right? Any change, the first step to anything that you do starts from knowledge, right? So whether it's deciding which college to go to, which subject to take, which company to join, what decisions to take, it's all driven by, having some knowledge or some awareness about it, right? When that knowledge starts getting, concentrated in certain pockets, in this case, because of AI and because of the large LLMs, I mean, the large language models being English speaking audiences are going to have an advantage, right? How do you make sure the same set of opportunities, the same access to knowledge is made available to people who are non-English speaking? So Hindi, Kannada, Bengali, Marathi, all of that. And one of the things we're doing at IDR Answers is saying, how do we make it available? So the back end might be English, but can anyone sitting anywhere in the country using WhatsApp, right? Not all of them are going to have, I mean, WhatsApp is our most regularly used form of things. Can they ask the question in the language they're comfortable with, and can they get the answers they want? So it's a very important part of it, because accessibility of knowledge is a driving force, and accessibility means you have to definitely address the issue of language in a country like India. So
Definitely.
yeah.
And I know for a fact that you were in Orissa last
Yes.
few days.
Yes.
Were there any like novel insights you got for IDR Answers, or in general
Yeah.
for your work that you from that visit that came
Yeah.
out?
No, it's a great question, because I was in a district called Ganjam in coastal Orissa, and we got to meet a lot of young people, and you can see the hunger, right, to kind of do well, to kind of the level of aspiration, because everyone now, because they have access to social media and YouTube, like the aspirations are pretty much the same across the country, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter whether you're in like a small village, Mauda in Ganjam, or whether you're in Delhi, which means, and if you don't meet their aspirations, it is going to lead to disappointment and discontent and all of that, right? So the hunger is there, the demand is there. How do like organizations, and again, I say whether non-profits or whether companies, who serve these segments, how do you kind of, fulfill that demand, right?
Yeah.
And and typically people say, oh, young people want jobs, but they also want knowledge. And I feel like this conference is a big indicator of that. People have come here to learn. I mean, they've also come here to net. Correct.
Which you're working towards. So
Yeah.
lovely to see that again.
Yeah.
You were connected back to that in Orissa.
Yeah.
So, Asmaran, the last question, and we'll wrap up after this and take audience questions, is that IDR is proudly women-led knowledge platform. In a world where foundational AI systems are still shaped by limited perspectives, how can women and diverse voices lead in shaping AI as a force for equity, representation, and inclusion?
I mean, I think it does. Like I said when I started, I said, I've been in environments where there's been very high levels of testosterone, investment banking, financial services, engineering. And I think we wanted to create a space which was not that. I've also worked with tons of amazing women, and I just know, we talk about sisterhood, we talk about it in our friendships, in our this, but sisterhood at the workplace is also something. So yeah, I mean, like, I think it's just come, like, we're women founded, but we're also like women led. The majority of the team is women, and I just feel, we're also the only ones in the entire social impact space that runs a media platform, which means women have taken on one of the hardest jobs, because nobody else, we have no competition in 10 years, which means we've taken on some of the hardest jobs, which all of us know we're very good at doing the hard jobs. What we're not very good at doing is talking about it or building a profile. And I'm hoping, conferences like this kind of help do that. But I think your question about why it's important, AI is going to be a lot of conversation in the next 5-10 years is going to be AI, whether it's by government, whether it's by businesses, whether it's by communities. We don't want to be excluded from another set of spaces again, right? So
Yeah.
it's not that we don't have the talent. It's not that we don't know what to do. It's, the system is stacked against us, but how do we find points of like community support systems and all of that to do that? It's not hard to learn. I mean,
Yeah.
all of us you know, a lot of the people in my team don't have a tech background, right?
Yeah.
We get the men to do the tech, we'll run the world. So I think that's the orientation that should be there, right? As in,
Find
like,
the ways to
yeah.
get it, adapt as much
Yeah.
as you can.
But I think a
Yeah.
lot of it is about, you know, we always say, like, even when like we're promoting women will, and all of y'all know this, right? We will think that we have to be really good at this job and really good at the next job before I can put up, you know, before I think I'm capable. I think, you know, we just have to kind of say that, you know, sorry, I'm going to digress a bit because again, we are like a women-led team. In our office, sometimes when we have to like talk about marketing and stuff, and like, you know, 5 of us are sitting around the table, we'll say, okay, how would a man say this? How would he market this? And then let's use that language, because it is true, it's different. We will talk about what we've done, and men will talk about they'll paint the vision,
Yeah.
right? And I think some of it is how do we do that? Because we know the nuts and bolts. We
Yeah.
know all of it. It's just a matter of, I think, breaking the system to allow us into those spaces.
Perfect. No, thank you. Thanks for all the amazing points and the powerful truths that you shared about this amazing topic, Smaranita. I do want to open it to audience questions. I think we have 2 minutes. We'll take 2 questions if there are questions.
But before that, do you want to talk a little bit about what you do? Because one of the things I said about
Yeah.
sisterhood, right? It's what you do with women in product. So
Definitely.
maybe it might be worth just telling them what.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, as Maranita said, the community is all about forming that sisterhood, but very focused towards growth and career aspirations, specifically in AI, product, careers spaces, right? And we do a lot of enablement in terms of bringing global product thinking to the communities that we are building. And how we do that is we partner with a lot of corporates, big tech, startups, and connect our members to the next opportunities, to leaders who are doing great work and building on the next use cases in AI, right? So we partner with these firms to bring that understanding. We have a lot of like courses and cohorts, workshops, which are in person and online as well, where we help upskill our members in terms of leadership, AI, specifically like AI-driven decision making, which is very crucial at this point. So that's the larger focus for our community, and doing it all along, like with that sisterhood feeling, right? With that community feel, and that you have people to support you. Any sort of question that comes to your mind while you're looking for a new role, while you're like starting a company, while like you're just in a job and you're stuck with something in a project, there is a difficult team member that you have to deal with, you can share that with the community and they can share their experiences, how they tackle that situation at some point. So yeah, so that's what we are building as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Smaranita, for putting that spotlight. Yeah. Any questions, guys?
Thank you both so much for this panel. I really like what you're doing. I had a quick question on, while you're building this product, are you also working on defining some regulatory things on what the use of Gen AI and things like that could be in this field? Because I know some healthcare founders, for example, in the US, while they're building healthcare and Gen AI healthcare startups, they're also working as a coalition to define what the safe use of AI with other people would look like. And it's new, so it has to be defined by someone. They've sort of taken up the onus to do it, but I was wondering if you're doing something like that too.
So I think it's a very important question you've asked, because you need protocols, you need governance, and step 2 of AI, IDR answers right now, it's India based, it's IDR, but the plan is to make it a global platform where there are different knowledge sources at the back end. So all of this matters, right? Because you're going to have users from across the world, you're going to have privacy concerns, you're going to, like how do you safeguard people's data while also giving them what they want? So we are working with a bunch of people across the world to put in some of these protocols and governance structures, because without governance, it's, you're going to create all the problems. You have to build in governance when you build a platform. So definitely, yeah.
Thank you for that question. Any other questions? Shweta.
Hi. Thanks. And thanks for this conversation. Really important and really important. The work that both of you are doing, I think is really, really important. Smaranita, the question really is, and rightfully you've said that IDR is really the only platform, the media platform for the social sector. And I know we all worry about it quite a bit. So how do we change that? How do we make, I know IDR should become global. Today we don't talk of IDR as being mainstream media, and that should change. But how do we create more of that? How do we maybe leverage technology better? I'm sure you've thought about it, if you can talk about
How do
that.
we create more ideas?
Correct.
Yeah. You know, we always, when we started, I would always tell people, there's no one now, but think how would we behave if we had competition, right? So you need to kind of keep ahead of the, of the game. But I think the reason there is no other idea is it's very hard to do. It's very hard to kind of, you know this, Shweta, in the impact space, everything, like there are no revenue models, right? You're dependent on grants, you're dependent on funders and foundations to fund you. And most funders in the social impact space prefer to fund, girls going to school. So education, healthcare, things that they can touch and feel, generating jobs, water and sanitation. Very few philanthropists understand the value of things like, IDEA, which is learn. If you don't have ideas, so for instance, if I'm an education NGO and there's another 110 kilometers down the road and another 120 kilometers down the road, each one is repeating the same, it's probably trial and erroring the same things and not learning from each other, right? So how much loss of resources and loss of impact is there? So I think it's hard because funding is such an issue. I think that's why that's my thing. And it's also talent is a problem. People who understand the impact space, but are also great editors, writers, journalists. So it's a mixture of both talent and funding, and it's very hard to do. So
Effort and reward as well.
yes,
right?
exactly, right. And I mean, I think for a lot of all of y'all here, you take revenues for granted, right? You run a business, you can generate revenues. The government actually doesn't allow non-profits to have more than 20% of their income as revenues. So it actively discourages you from generating your own revenue, right? So now you're working in those kind of environments. And then you're saying, now, how do we come up with innovation? How do we stay agile? How do we get people to understand the value? And I think that's the challenge, basically. Yeah.
Thank you for that answer. Okay. We'll
We
wrap
might
up.
have to wrap
Yes.
it up. But if any of you have any further doubts, I hope you both will be around for the day. So do connect with them. But thank you so much, Swati and
Yeah.
Smaranita, for that amazing discussion. Can we have, give it up for them, and can we have the track curators, Divya and Saumishri, onto the dais to give off a sweet memento to both of them? That is Saumishri handing it over to Swati.